What's going on, everybody? Cali Death Podcast back once again, episode 61. Once again, missing the professor. He's still in Bangladesh. I hope he's having a fucking awesome time. Couldn't really get to the computer to get on here with us, but we miss you, brother. We'll see you when you get back. Thank you to the resident homies, Joel and Casey, for being here with me this week. Thanks to all the subscribers. Thanks to all the listeners. Hope you guys had a great holiday, and yeah, we're back to it. And today's your New Year's Eve, so be safe, but fucking rage on. Today is actually a couple reasons why it's special. One, we got a fucking legend on here with us. We'll get to him in a second, but our first product, little commercial thing for our homies and Deeds of Flesh, Jacoby, Mike, and Ivan over the last year been doing starting a new company, and it's a coffee company, and it's called Barrel Forged Coffee. And I don't know if you guys got yours yet. Joel, Casey, did you guys get it yet?
I haven't. No, I haven't.
It should be coming soon. But yeah, dude, I'm a coffee fanatic, dude. I drink it every day, all day. What's a fucking podcast without a fucking little coffee thing in the beginning? But really, though, it's like, it's really good shit, guys. It's Colombian beans. They've been doing a fucking lot of shit last year, getting it ready. And I'm not just saying this because they're my longtime homies. It actually is really good coffee. I've been drinking it for like the last 3 days. And yeah, when this thing gets rolling, you guys should support those guys. Battle Forged Coffee Company.
Is there a website?
Good question, dude. Yes, it is. Battleforgedcoffee.com.
Fuck yeah.
Battleforgedcoffee.com. So go check that out. I'm obviously it is a website if it's on the bag. I don't know if the bag is going to look like this. These might just be like little promo things, but either way, go support previous guests of the podcast, longtime homies, fucking fellow brutal death metal fucking awesome dudes. And yeah, here we are today with the legend I was just speaking about, Jeremy Wagner from fucking Broken Hope, and a guest fucking spot right here nobody knew about, little fucking Cuddy riff wizard shit coming in on the side, fucking Diego Sanchez. What up, dude? But yeah, dude,
thankful to be a part of it.
Hell yeah, dude. And Jeremy, thanks for being with us tonight too. I know you're on the East Coast, so thank you very much for giving us your time.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm glad to be here. I quick thing about your little coffee plug for that Battle Forge stuff. I think it's great. You said the Deeds of Flesh guys are doing that.
Yeah.
There's something about coffee and death metal that go hand in hand. Like our drummer Mike actually manages this badass coffee company in Chicago, and they're called Dark Matter Coffee. I don't know if you guys ever tried it when you're in Chicago, but they've got several locations in Chicago, but they also have a manufacturing plant that packages and makes their own lines of coffee. So they've collaborated with a bunch of different metal guys in the past, like Charlie from Anthrax, and Kirk from Metallica, and it's some more indie extreme bands. And then they just got their own brand, but yeah, coffee and death metal. It's
yeah, dude. I there's also, I think it's grindcore coffee or something.
Yeah.
They do a lot of the underground.
Archaic's got one.
Archaic's got a blend, and a bunch of tech metal bands got a blend through them.
Cool
and yeah,
to see.
dude,
It's cool to see bands like opening up. Sorry, just real quick. It's cool to see like bands like opening up to something different like that. Like not being like, it's not like merch, CDs, hats, blah blah. It's like they're doing like coffee's a cool little like side hustle to like, it's something we could use too. It's something like
caffeine that is the number one used drug on the planet. Definitely. Everybody fucking loves caffeine, dude. And us death metal guys, grindcore guys, we like fucking speed too. So what, getting pumped to go to a show, or fucking getting pumped to do this thing, getting pumped to just listen to some music and shit, caffeine works very well with that. Some guys go a little harder and get a little fucking powder in the situation. They get really fucking crazy. But I just like to stay mellow, smoke weed, and fucking drink coffee, dude.
I know, just a quick edit. You said like we like speed. We like like going fast.
Well, yeah,
we
like going fast.
Not like the Giorgio episode he's talking about like how the old death, or not even death guys, but the old like his old bands and shit. Like everyone was doing speed, not that kind of speed. We just like speed.
Fast fucking shit and aggressive shit, dude. And of course, caffeine gets you fucking ready for that, you know?
Totally.
So yeah, dude, it's really cool to see that. And, you know, a lot of guys could pair up with beer and shit. And I love drinking beer, but at the same time, like, I don't think I want a beer associated with me, because then it's like us promoting going out and getting fucked up, which we do with this show anyways. But
yeah, you don't do too good when you have a couple beers, Anthony.
I do fucking great, bro. What are you talking?
No, I mean, also too, like, like shipping beer's a bitch too. So like, if you had a beer association, like you have to be local to get it out, you know? So it's not really like logistically a good thing.
Yeah, now that Diego said that, I was fucking hammered the last time I saw him in person.
Yeah. So. Your smile gets bigger and your biceps get bigger and your hugs get stronger.
Because I got all that love, dude. I want to spread.
Yeah. That was so sick, dude. You and your wife were jamming out, dude. It was
Hell
so good.
Yeah, dude. It was fucking awesome, dude. And let's talk about that a little bit, but let's get into a little bit later, but let's get into Jeremy a little bit, dude.
Hell yeah.
One, I want to know how you guys, I mean, I got both of you guys on the show with me right now. Like, how are you guys, you know, hooked up and friends for however long you guys been friends?
Well, I don't know if Diego, if I met you before we toured back in 2013, but I just really remember knowing you from that tour we did in 2013.
Yeah, definitely. We definitely got to become friends on that one.
Yeah. And
I met you over the years though, ever since the Bowels of Repugnance tour.
Okay.
Every time Bowels of Repugnance, Repulsive Conception, Loathing, you know, Grotesque, like every tour you got with Joe too. I mostly rapped out with Joe in the parking lot, you know.
Did you see us at the Whiskey on the Bowels tour?
No, this was it a showcase maybe or something?
Oh, San Antonio?
No, in Corona, I think.
Oh, Corona. Okay.
Yeah.
Played there.
Showcase?
That would have been
Showcase Theater?
Conception.
Yeah.
First played there, yeah.
Yeah, that was back to back. I saw you 2 nights back to back. I saw you there, and then the World Beat Center, I think it was, down in San Diego. After that.
Yeah.
That's what
okay, that was on Loathing.
Yeah. Oh, no shit. Yes. Oh, when the rave started after, remember? Towards the end of the set.
I've got video from that show because I used to always bring a camcorder on tour. Thankfully, you know, because I got all those memories now. But dude, I remember fucking Disco Ball coming down because we were going over our time. We were headlining that tour, and they wanted to start the rave. Right. The whole show started out super late because the promoter, his sound guy, bailed on him, and he's scrambling to find someone to run the sound shit. And
that sucks.
That was the first time we ever played San Diego as well. But I got a video from my camcorder we set up, you know, to record every show. And I remember fucking Disco Ball coming down out of the ceiling. And our singer, Joe, rest in peace, was like,
yeah,
looks like we're going to start boogieing down here in a fucking minute or something. Yeah. Pretty fucking funny. But it's funny you remember that, dude, because, it kicked in the rave, and it was like, fuck, all right, I guess we got to wrap up our show, you know?
But, yeah, that sucked, man, especially because by then you had so many albums out, so you're looking forward to hearing so many songs, of course.
Yeah.
And you're always promoting the new one. But they started setting up at like 11:30, just putting little tapestries here and there, and you see people walking around. You know, this is back in the 90s when they're wearing huge pants and their light sticks, and like more power to them. I mean, they had a lot of fun, but not at a death metal show. You know, like back then, there wasn't.
I think that's venues
back in the day. It wasn't
that's venues just trying to squeeze the most out of the night, you know, because now we've had enough of these shows to where there's been a thing that we've heard about a few times where they shut down the death metal show and bring in the rave, and all they're doing is just fucking, you know, Getting two fucking rents out of one.
After having our set cut short a couple of times and going on tour, to go and tell the sound guy or the tour manager or anybody, whoever goes over their set, that cuts into their time, because I'm not getting my set cut short.
Totally.
And people want to get butthurt about it or whatever, but I like playing my music, especially live. And the fans, they only get to see you, dude, whenever you come through every now and then if they can make it. And if you're there to see that band, like, it sucks. I've seen so many bands and toured with so many bands that just get cut off, and you're like, we were gonna play this song, but
it's the worst.
It's the worst. The local, whoever it was,
That's what it is. It's ripple effects. It starts in the beginning and it slowly just ripples through it.
Yeah.
Until it gets to the headliner, and then they get fucked usually.
Hey, I got a question for you, Jeremy. Did Brian ever get stuck doing sound when he was live sound when you guys were on tour?
Like doing sound for us?
Yeah, for the band as well as because I know he did a couple of your albums, but did he did he ever do a live set?
Like Brian's always been a really great sound man. And the only thing he ever did was like a few times over our touring years when he was in the band, he would maybe set up the board.
Yeah.
We would sound check.
Yeah.
On a wireless at the board, sound checking his guitar, playing along and get stuff. Because in the 90s, even with all those albums and even headlining tours later in the late 90s, when we got to that point, we still didn't make a lot of money. We couldn't really afford a fucking sound man, Right. So Brian, thankfully, he'd sometimes dial in the board or work with a sound man, a house guy, make sure shit was legit. But he never did our sound. He never did our sound while we played or anything like that.
Yeah,
and
correct.
He didn't do, to my knowledge, he didn't do any band's sound when we toured. But he started getting into the front of house game like in the late 90s. Death actually took him out. There was a Death tour. And in fact, there's a Death album, a live album. I think it's Live in LA, where they recorded at the Whiskey. Brian was on that tour and did sound for that.
Oh, wow. Okay. So they also did a corresponding DVD too. The live footage came out on DVD.
So Brian did that sound and or did sound for Death on that tour. And then
that's killer.
From there, he was always a great studio guy because he produced all our first 5 albums. And he had gone to school to be a studio engineer and all that stuff. So he really had skills, and we, as a band, were really lucky to have him because we had a built-in producer and a guy who really knew what he was doing. And much like us not being able to afford a sound man, Broken Hope in the 90s, we didn't have huge recording budgets either. So it wasn't like we were grabbing a Scott Burns or someone.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have that kind of money, but we did have Brian Griffin. And I think that benefited us greatly. One, Brian worked in a recording studio full time while he's in the band. So we had access to a studio on off hours, and with the small budgets we had from the record label, we milked that. We would be able to be in a studio for sometimes 8 weeks, thanks to Brian, because we come in, no one would be there. He'd be doing all the work, and he worked his ass off, but later in the late 90s and stuff, like when he went out with Death, as soon as he did that tour, people started asking for him to do sound. So he was like, next thing you know, he's on tour doing sound for Meshuggah and then all these other bands. And then over time, his career and trajectory went from working in a recording studio to being a full-time sound man and even a tour manager for huge bands. And his main band he's with to this day is Lamb of God. So,
wow.
He's still been their longtime sound man and their tour manager. So he's come a long way, but he's got these amazing ears and skills, you know. And again, you know, we were lucky to have him back in those days, you know.
It's nice to have a double slice of the pie of Lamb of God tour. You're the sound guy and the tour manager.
And the tour
slices.
Yeah, right. Yep. Yeah, exactly. So he's done pretty well for himself, you know.
That's cool.
Right on, Jeremy. Well, let's get into it a little bit more with you. So how we usually do this on the episode, we want you to take us back as far as you can go, dude. Tell me when music became important to you. You know, we like to hear about, at least me personally, like to hear about what your parents were listening to when you were around the house, all that kind of shit. Like what sparked it for you, and then what sparked it to get you into actually wanting to play it.
All right. Well, I'll tell you, man, when it comes to doing a deep dive and doing my origins, just Anthony, you can buckle your seatbelt in because I'll give you the whole story. Now, I'll try to make it Reader's Digest version as much as possible, but I tend to talk your ear off. So,
hey, dude, we go for at least 2-3 hours at least, dude. So,
okay.
I mean, DiGiorgio was just on for over 4 hours. So,
no shit, right on.
Yeah,
and then he hung out for an hour afterwards.
All right, well, let's do it. Yeah, I saw you guys have had some great guests, man.
I was going to say, for the people who were watching and saw that freeze up at the end, we had wrapped it up, and then like 30 seconds later, it was like Steve's trying to get back on. I was like, fuck, man, if we just stuck it out and just bullshitted for a little bit, we would have had like a correct wrap up or whatever with him. But it's still, we hung out. He came back. So
that dude hangs. I'm just going to say.
He's fucking, so fucking cool, dude. I mean, yeah, I'm still like floating on that cloud a little bit too. And then I get caught by fucking Jeremy Wagner's cloud. And I'm like, fuck, dude, what the fuck's going on, dude?
We're super stoked to have you on, man.
Before I forget, I have a question for Diego. Bro, are you on either you smoke either really good weed or you have natural endorphins? Because as long as I've known you, you're constantly smiling and you're so good natured. And every time I see your face, it's like I want to harness that good positive Diego vibes I get, dude. What?
Hell yeah!
Like,
thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Smiling, man. It's a great thing.
You know
what are you trying up to, man? Is it better living?
I haven't smoking really good weed for a long time, but I've got a lot of different generations in my family. They're all musicians. And I think when you put in your heart, like, you know, there's certain years where like the Scores used to practice 5 nights a week for years.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when you have that natural release, you know, and creativity and everything, I think you get rid of a lot of things. Cause I am just happy-go-lucky, good natured anyways.
Yeah.
But I know that when you put like, you know, music is an awesome release, man. And now that I have a 4-year-old and you look at life differently, like I'm just thankful to be here, bro. And to know you as a friend, because I was just a little kid, dude. I was like 13, 14 years old, and you know, your logo is what got me to get your album. And next thing you know, it just turned out to be. I still got the original Bowels of Repugnance long sleeve, dude, with that has like 20,000 colors on it. The ink is so thick on that thing.
I think I eBayed, this is a side note. I eBayed a fucking, cause I'm a younger dude. I'm only 37. So I caught you guys after the wave, but I think I still have it, a Repulsive Conception tour shirt that I found on eBay for like $30 back in the day.
Yeah.
But what I was also going to add to what Diego was talking about is what I was just going to add to it, meaning like, it's not just death metal. I mean, you come through, you meet all these musicians throughout, you know, your career, and with me personally, most of the people I meet are totally fucking chill. You know, there's a spectrum. Diego's high on the super chill side of that spectrum, but there's still like mostly chill dudes. And I think that, yes, that's what it is. We have a release, it's a therapy in a way to let it out on stage, or to let it out in the studio, or just fucking growling on the way to work, people looking at y'all fucking crazy and shit. But it's just like, get a little fucking juice out, let off a little steam. And then it's like, oh dude, let's fucking kick it, dude.
I do joke around a lot on this podcast about like, cause every time you get brought up Diego, everyone's like, oh, Diego, like everyone gets like, they turn into you a little bit. They're just like, oh, fuck yeah. Like, they're like, it's kind of like contagious. And I was like, has anyone ever seen that guy pissed? I don't know. Like, is that guy, I've never seen him like, I don't even know what that would look like. I have I can't even like pretend to like make it like another reality in my head to see you mad. Like I can't even, like every time you're like this. You've always been like this.
Turns into a wizard, dude. Eyes all red and shit.
I know he's fucking actually a wizard. Just comes out. It's like, fuck it. I told
you. You gotta continue, but it comes out every now and then, man.
Yeah, totally. No. Well, like what Jeremy was saying, I totally, appreciate. Every time I see you, we could be having like a tough time on tour or something. Then you meet up with us in San Diego, and it's just like, the vibe gets changed instantly.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Thank you, guys. I got good genetics, man.
I had to ask you, bro. Yeah, I like your positive nature. So anyway, back to Anthony. I'll start off with I was born in a town called Libertyville, Illinois, which happens to also be the hometown of Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine.
Oh shit!
And my parents, both their families were from there. Libertyville is like a northern suburb of Chicago. So when I was around 3, my parents decided they wanted to move to central Wisconsin because my maternal grandparents, a bunch of my aunts and uncles had moved up there, and my parents loved it. So I lived in central Wisconsin from age 3 till 16. Then I moved back to Illinois to live with my dad. By that time, my parents were divorced, so it was like 1986. And so I grew up in the country. I was like really in the middle of America's dairyland. It was nothing but fields of corn and other crops and all these dairy farms. So my parents had a farm, but we didn't have any livestock or anything. It was just a farm we lived on, and it was
Any siblings?
One sister. She's a year and a half younger than me.
Okay.
And her name's Sarah. And so growing up in central Wisconsin in the 70s, there's no cable TV. We had rabbit ear antennas on a black and white TV. So maybe we got 3 or 4 TV channels and stuff. So a lot of my growing up, which I think is a great thing, was like not with my eyes glued to the TV. I'd be listening to like my parents' record collection, right? And I was also very much into books. My mom was this voracious reader, and her tastes in books were kind of like what my tastes are. And I think maybe I got this from my mom, but she was into mystery, thriller, dark fiction, and horror books. So I'd pick up my mom's paperback books from her library and look at the covers and be like, wow, that's cool. That's cool. And I was always, to this day, a horror kid. I was into creepy, scary things. I loved Halloween. When Halloween would come around, I couldn't wait to get dressed up and, go trick-or-treating. So I had a penchant for books and music at a very young age, thanks to my parents. In fact, when I was with the book side of things, I was really literate as a young kid. So I was always consuming kids' books like nonstop. And then right around 1975, when the movie Jaws was in theaters and premiered, back then. The paperback edition of Jaws was everywhere, like every checkout lane at a grocery store, drugstore, everywhere. That book was everywhere. My parents had it.
So I have a quick question. Sorry. So is that, and this is me being just ignorant to, I've seen the movie Jaws, but don't know the origins. Is that based on a true story or a book that was written before the movie? Or did that book come out like right next to the movie at the same time?
The book was written before the movie. Okay. I think the book was written by Peter Benchley, and it came out maybe 2 years before the movie ever came out in theaters.
Wow, that was quick. They picked it up for a movie.
Yeah, the book, the hardcover edition did really well. Paramount Pictures, or I'm sorry, not Paramount, Universal Pictures bought the film rights to it, and they got Steven Spielberg, who at the time was a young director, and the movie ended up being this huge blockbuster back then. In fact, I think Jaws is where the term blockbuster came from.
No shit.
So big. Before that, the biggest movie before that, I think, was The Godfather. And that was a huge, box office sensation. But Jaws, when it came out, was like this summer blockbuster, and it was super huge.
So Spielberg was part of that, huh?
What's that?
So Spielberg was Jaws before or around the same time as Star Wars?
Jaws was before Star Wars.
No shit.
By a couple years. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had no idea. Damn.
Yeah. So I think
put it all together too. That's cool.
Jaws came out 75. I think Star Wars came out 77. And both Spielberg and George Lucas were both kind of had these similar stories. They had done movies before the movies that put them on the map and made them fucking huge, And I think they're around the same age. But yeah, the 70s, that was like some of the greatest movies were made in the 70s, in my opinion. But anyway, because of that cover of the paperback of Jaws, which was the same artwork you saw on the movie poster, the chick swimming naked with the big giant shark coming up, I was like 4 or 5 years old looking at that cover, and I was just like, it captured my imagination, and it scared me and also had my interest. And that became like the first adult novel I ever read in my life. Before that, it was just kids' books. And to read a novel like that was, one, a hell of an accomplishment for a grade schooler. Two, there's some adult situations I didn't understand. I remember I'd ask my mom, "Oh, what's this mean?" Blah, blah, blah. She'd be like, "I don't know if you should be reading that," but it was pretty funny. So the reason I mentioned the book stuff, because books and writing became a huge part of my life as years went on. And now I'm talking about music. Music was huge for me because my parents, they had this great vinyl collection, and they'd play records, and I'd latch on the songs and want to hear them over and over again. For example, my parents had a Bob Dylan album called Blood on the Tracks. And on that album, there's a song called Tangled Up in Blue, which I couldn't, as a kid, couldn't get enough of that song. I loved it. And I'm again, like 4 or 5, trying to play their albums, scratching the fuck out of their vinyl. Cause I'm like, I'm like this tall.
Out, yeah. Put them on fucking a chair to get it in there. And
then, I don't know if you all have kids, Diego. No, you said you have a 4-year-old, but there's one thing about kids, just from, being a dad myself or observing kids in my whole life and being a kid, kids like certain movies, they'll want to watch a fucking DVD over and over and over and over again. You know, like my stepkids, I remember when they were little, they wanted to watch Toy Story, and they would watch it. Just you could just put them down and it would be on rotation, right?
I'm a father of 3, so I know exactly what you're talking about, dude.
Yeah, you know, yeah.
It's Frozen for fucking. But yeah, I actually wanted to add to that because I'm like, I want that feeling. As an adult, it's hard to get that feeling. Like we're chasing.
I remember being in that feeling because I don't have any kids, but I remember like being upset. Like Top Gun was like, I watched Top Gun, like it would be daily. It'd be like a daily thing.
Maverick, Joe?
Yeah, dude. No, I don't know.
And how you'd rewind a part over and over and over again of a part, and it would just fucking, you'd just be on the floor rolling around laughing the whole time. Every time it fucking plays, is like
that's what like for people like my dad had like a Primus video and like just a quick little thing, and I would literally come home. It was called Cheesy Home Video, and it was just a VHS, one of their first. I think it might be their first one, but
I remember that.
Yeah, it was fucking funny, man. It was funny. There's a bunch of jokes and there's music videos and stuff. I'd watch that thing from front to end like every day before school, and then I'd come home and watch it again, even like in the later like 11 to 13 time. It still had that kind of like it wasn't burning out. Just like the flame was still going. It was still fresh every time, kind of like what you're talking about with the kids.
That explains a lot, Joel, because those guys were ahead of their time, man. And all the different bands you played in, like you've had to learn a lot of different people's styles, dude. And
totally
you pull your weight, dude. So that's it's pretty rad to have that artistic ability to just mold and flow and get down.
Yeah, mold and flow. Dude. What was the first jam, Jeremy, that you had to listen to nonstop? Did you already mention it?
So like that Bob Dylan song. Tangled Up in Blue. But then I start diving into like the rest of my parents' albums. So there was a ton of Beatles albums and Crosby, Stills and Nash, Neil Young, Pink Floyd,
Neil Young was good.
Grateful Dead, on and on and on. And the Beatles really became my favorite band as a kid. I just
rightly so
loved them. And like the song Baby You're a Rich Man, I couldn't stop listening to that song. I was just crazy about that. And the song Yesterday. Not in grade school, like a lot of kids, like this, I'm just remembering growing up, boys would be like, oh, at least where I grew up in the country, they'd be like, oh, girls that have cooties and shit, right? Like they're like, just funny grade school thing. But me, I was always this little hopeless romantic. I always thought girls were cute. And I wanted a girlfriend, dude, like since I was like age 4, right?
I think I was the same way, dude. And I think it was Motown. Motown did that to me, dude. Everybody was singing about their chicks.
So I this girl I had a crush on. I remember her name, Amy Erickson, like good old Viking name, Amy Erickson, right? Like
blonde hair, blue eyes.
Look, she had blonde hair, blue eyes. Her family ancestry was like from, Sweden or something, or Norway or something. And so I would call her on the phone and trying to be all cool and stuff. And I would sing her the lyrics to the song Yesterday by the Beatles. I was already trying to impress girls.
That's awesome, dude.
Young age. It was funny. But anyway, that song right there, Anthony, to answer your question, that's one I'd play over and over and over and over again. So
it doesn't seem so far away, yeah.
Listen to albums a lot, Oh, and 8 tracks too. The band
Kiss.
Hot Tuna. I don't know if you guys ever checked out Hot Tuna. They were really big in
Tuna. Oh yeah.
And they had a song called I think it was something like Hot Jelly Roll Blues or something. And that song, like I still listen to it to this day. That's one I definitely had on repeat over and over and over again. There's a real cool guitar lick throughout that whole song. It's just really cool. But anyway, that's kind of where my love of music started, thanks to my parents and thanks to that.
I want to point out something about your parents real quick, because you said, you were raised on a dairy farm and stuff. And that's like, when you think of like farm living and stuff like that, you don't think of Beatles and like, parents listening, like you think of them listening to like country or, like, yeah. They were like, must have been pretty interesting folks.
Yep. Yeah.
Chicago roots.
It's funny you mentioned that, Joel, because in that part of Wisconsin where we lived, country music was huge. Most everybody listened to country music. And back then, as a kid and as a teenager, even into my early 20s, I hated country music. I always thought it sucked and all that. Later in life now, I actually have an appreciation for country music, especially outlaw country.
Me too. Like Waylon Jennings and shit like that.
Waylon Jennings is my favorite.
Yeah, he's the best.
I love him. And even some corny, like commercial country songs back in the 70s that I would hear, like the Oak Ridge Boys and shit. There's certain songs like now, I don't know. My attitude is, if it hits me right and I like it, that's what fucking matters. It ain't
exactly
trying to be cool or whatever.
Yeah, but I got over that shit a long time ago too.
Yeah, that's a good thing, But when I was a kid, I rode on a school bus where the school bus driver would, play country music mostly. All the kids on the bus, their parents and everyone listened to country music. The kids I went to school with all had cowboy boots, trucker hats, and seriously smelled like cow manure.
Damn.
That's all I grew up with.
Sounds like Bakersfield.
My parents were these people that came from Chicago, had their own tastes and all this stuff, and grew up in a different way, and then were transplanted by their own choice into central Wisconsin. But when I was growing up, my dad had really cool friends in central Wisconsin too that were really into rock and roll and stuff. So like my dad's best friend at the time, Bruce, he that guy was like a second dad to me. He was awesome. He's no longer with us. He died in 1988, but his effect on me in many ways is so profound. And to this day, if I hear like Pink Floyd, The Wall, okay, him and my dad, when my parents divorced, I'd be with my dad on the weekends and we'd be at this guy Bruce's house. And it's like one of these memes. I see these memes out there, like if you rode a Schwinn bike like this and fucking jumped a 50-foot pothole with no safety equipment and your parents didn't give a fuck where you are, you had a cool childhood.
Yeah.
That was like my childhood. I'd be at my dad's buddy's house on the weekends. They'd be smoking fucking weed like you wouldn't believe. They'd be drinking, partying. There'd be blow. There'd be shit like a kid probably shouldn't have been in that environment, but I don't know, man. It was the 70s and my mom was like, oh, you're off with your dad, whatever, have fun. Like I'd be up till 3 a.m. because that's how late these guys would party. Mm-hmm. And I'd run around with my sister and the kids that were with these other grown-ups, and they'd be jamming fucking Pink Floyd, The Wall, The Cars, again, Neil Young, all kinds of rock shit. And that really fucking hit home with me.
And how old were you at like this time specifically?
I would have been those years would have been from age 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, you know, and then when I was turned 13, because I lived with my mom, my dad eventually moved back to Illinois, and my mom moved to this nearby town, moved my sister and I and her to this town called Stevens Point, which was the big city near the country area that I lived in. Stevens Point is this huge university town. And they actually, what was cool about growing up in Stevens Point is they had a few record stores. They had a college campus record store, and they always had the coolest music, you know, constant. It was all metal. And then
a record store on the campus,
you know, right on it was called Campus Records. That's what it was called.
That's fucking dope, dude.
And then there were other used record stores. And by that time too, when we moved to the big city, we got our first color TV and cable television. So I saw MTV in all its glory, you know, in its heyday, and there was a lot of metal and stuff. So I was getting turned on to all kinds of stuff. And that's where my tastes started changing towards heavy metal. Because now I'm going to junior high in this town, and I'm meeting all these other kids that were into heavy metal. I meet these new kids, go to their house, and their bedroom walls are plastered with all these heavy metal magazine pictures from Hit Parader, Circus,
Metal Maniacs,
all this stuff, you know, way before Metal Maniacs.
No shit.
Way before Rip magazine, like
hell yeah.
early 80s and stuff, you know. And then eventually by the late 80s, some of those other magazines started coming out and catering to more extreme music. But I remember when I was in junior high and moved to Stevens Point, I started getting into heavy metal stuff now. You know, I grew up with my parents' music and all this stuff. Now these kids were turning me on to all kinds of music. I had one friend, he was a skateboarder guy. And I always thought he was rich because his parents were pretty, you know, had great jobs, and they bought him whatever he wanted. So this kid in like 1985, he had like 200 cassette tapes of all these bands. And like for me to save up money to buy one cassette tape was a major hurdle. And my mom, you know, sounds cliche, but my mom worked 2 jobs to raise my sister and I. So she didn't have a lot of money. So if I was like, Mom, could you buy me this cassette? It depended on where her paycheck was that week. So seeing a guy with 200 cassette tapes,
yeah,
wow, you're fucking rich. And then I'd be like going through them all. Wow, who's this band? Who's this band? And he had everything. He had like every Iron Maiden album. So much like books, my mom's books, I was always into cover artwork. So I'd see all this artwork, and I'd start reading heavy metal magazines and getting those. And early on, like my first metal bands I was into, and this goes back, Anthony, to kind of what you were asking about my timeline with music and me getting into heavier music. I was like really into this band Zebra. I don't know if you remember that band, but they had this MTV video for the song called "Who's Behind the Door," and they were their debut album was like my favorite album. I got it for my birthday, and I couldn't stop listening to that album. If you ask Kirk Weinstein from Crowbar about Zebra, he'll probably gush all over you guys and tell you all about Zebra because they're from New Orleans, and the guy Randy Jackson, the guitar player, is to this day one of the sickest guitar players.
Who are they comparable to? There's like another band that maybe more people would know that they can compare to.
What's that?
Is there any other band that you can compare them to that more people would be?
Not really. They were
like
set
the hair
up,
metals type
they were
shit?
set up like they had a kind of their own niche. Like they were set up as a 3-piece always. So if you think of Rush or Triumph, I don't know, Motorhead. They don't sound like any of those bands, but they had that formula. 3 dudes only who were the sickest caliber of musicians you could hear of.
Three dudes making a huge sound. Three dudes.
Exactly, Joel. And so, but Anthony, I don't know who I'd compare them to, but they were just fucking awesome.
I'm gonna go check them out after this for sure.
I got that cassette, and that was like, I just got a Walkman in that cassette for my birthday, and I was like 13, 14, and something like that. And
did it have the EQ on it, Jeremy?
I don't think that one had an EQ, bro.
Oh man! Once the EQ came out on it, it was all over after that.
No, because cassette players back in the day, it's like getting like nowadays, it's like equivalent to getting a PS5.
Dude,
like,
I was fucking stoked. I was just about to ask, like my first Walkman, I was so fucking jacked.
Oh, it was a Christmas present for me too. It was like
fucking. Oh yeah, me too, man. I would lay in bed at night and just listen to my Walkman. And then the next day I'd get ready for school and
dude, I was brushing my teeth with my Walkman on, dude.
And I'd walk to school. And this also sounds cliche, but you hear these stories. I sound like old man Wagner here, but I would walk to school, and about a mile in this college town. I was
about to say in the snow, dude. I was like, no way, dude.
Yeah, it's got to be in the snow, dude, barefoot.
And it would be winter time, and my hair would be wet, and it would be frozen like a fucking ice helmet. And I'd have my Walkman on, and I would walk to school, and I'd be listening to. So, like at the time, I was into Zebra.
Wait, real quick, when you took your headphones off, was it like off your hair? Did it get frozen to your head?
Yeah, on the top for sure.
The headphones were literally stuck to your hair?
Yeah. Not my ears, thankfully, but yeah, right up here every time. That's crazy. That shit was hard. Like you could go.
Damn.
I never got fucking pneumonia or anything.
No wonder you're in Miami.
That's true.
Because you lived through it. That's why you didn't get pneumonia, is because your body was used to those fucking winters,
I'd be so pissed some days because I'd walk to school after it would take forever to get there in winter in a snowstorm, and then find out school is closed because it's a snow day.
And you had to walk back.
Worst problems. I was still happy there was no school. But so I was listening to Crocus and Zebra and like Rat, Out of the Cellar. And one album I got that really blew me away, which, and Casey, this is relevant to your shirt. When I told you I love your shirt, Screaming for Vengeance is to this day one of my favorite metal albums. And I remember that had just come out a couple years before I was really getting into metal. I think that album came out in 82. So by the time I was, 14, I got that album. I couldn't stop listening to it. And one day I'm watching MTV Headbangers Ball, and they had a special, it was either Headbangers Ball or it was called Metal Mania before it was Headbangers Ball. Sure. But I'm sure it's on YouTube. But I remember specifically MTV was at this amazing festival, Day on the Green, in Oakland, California, in 1985.
Heard of it?
Is that where the bass solo from Cliff Burton?
Yeah, Cliff Burton's bass solo is that footage is from there. And relevant to that, when I saw Metallica, it was just a quick couple of shots. I've gone back and discovered that someone had the wherewithal back in the day to record on VHS. Now it's on YouTube. So what I saw, what you can see now is like you see Metallica, I think like playing a snippet of either Ride the Lightning or Fight Fire with Fire. And then it cuts to James and Lars and they're like, hey, you're watching whatever, Metal Mania or Headbangers Ball on MTV, blah, blah, blah. And I recorded that on VHS back then. I recorded everything on MTV that was related to metal. So I would watch that over because I'd never seen a band live that looked like that. I had seen Metallica in metal mags, but I didn't pay any attention to them. At the time, they only had 2 albums out. You know, they had Kill 'Em All and Ride the Lightning. So that guy I told you about from school who had like 200 cassette tapes, the skateboarder kid, he had everything. So one day I was hanging out with him at his house and I'm like, do you have anything from a band I just saw on MTV called, what are they called? I swear I said Metallica. I didn't even know how to pronounce the fucking name Metallica. Go Metallica. And he said, you mean Metallica? I go, yeah, that's it. He goes, yeah, I've got, they got 2 albums out. Here, I'll put this on. He put on the album Ride the Lightning. So, and that's like one of those moments in your life where you remember where you were, what you were doing. I remember I was in his basement.
You probably know what the smell of his basement is too.
Yeah.
At the time.
I remember the color of the fucking tile, everything vividly. He had a huge boombox. Again, his family was probably just a mid-level family, but I was so poor, even a big boombox made me think, you're fucking rich, you know, like
totally.
He was so in touch with music. This guy was great. So he puts on Ride the Lightning. I remember I was on his skateboard, just standing on it, kind of going back and forth, and that acoustic intro starts, and then it goes into Fight Fire with Fire. I was immediately hooked by the speed and ferociousness of Fight Fire with Fire. Then it went into Ride the Lightning, which I remember right now, it struck me as this epic fucking song. And then when For Whom the Bell Tolls came, the 3rd track, that fucking intro and the bass, and then that fucking that riff, that was it, man. I was so fucking floored that I begged him to dub me Ride the Lightning on a blank cassette. Again, I couldn't afford to go to Kmart and buy the fucking cassette for whatever it was, $9 at the time. He dubbed it for me along with Kill 'Em All. He made me tapes of Show No Mercy, Slayer. He's like, you need to listen to this. You got to check this out. And that whole fucking time changed my life. I realized I wanted to be a guitar player then. Now, I was always interested in guitar. My mom, because I begged her when I was age 12, I got a guitar, acoustic guitar for Christmas. But I didn't really take to it. I just kind of fucked around. You know, like some kids typically beg their parents for shit. They get it and they don't really do anything. And that's kind of what I did.
Mine was a ventriloquist dummy.
No,
I wanted it for mine was a ventriloquist dummy, dude. I got it, and it was one of those things where I got it for Christmas.
All right, I'm done.
It was literally like 2 weeks later. That shit just sat in the closet, dude.
Quick side note: I was born. I don't know. I was born the day Ride the Lightning came out, July 27th, 1984. Was my birthday. So I'm like, I don't know what that is in Sagittarius or Leo or whatever the fuck it is, but I feel like that's a part of it.
Yeah, that's your horoscope.
Cool.
Next time a chick asks you what your horoscope is, it's lightning. Well, and I write it.
A number of things are happening at this time when I'm like I was, I don't know, 15, and My mom, she wouldn't buy me an electric guitar. Not only could she not really afford it, but she's like, well, I got you that acoustic guitar. You never played it. Why do you want an electric guitar? I'm like, please, please. So she actually let me trade in my acoustic guitar that she had bought me 4 years before and some money I'd saved up. And I got my first electric guitar, which was a red Kramer Striker guitar with one pickup. And I wanted the guitar, I wanted that particular one because I was fucking insane for the movie Crossroads with Ralph Macchio.
Yep.
Steve Vai. That guitar duel. To this day, it's one of my favorite movies. Talk about being young and watching something over and over and over and over and over again. That fucking guitar duel, that movie, I couldn't get enough of it.
And so can we give props to real quick? Can we give props to Macchio for like literally like he's maybe not playing. It's not exactly him playing, but like him watching him play it. I'm like, when you see those people play guitar or they mime it or something like that, and you're like, that's bullshit.
Totally know that person doesn't know how to fucking play. Yeah.
Like I watched Ralph Macchio and I'm like, that's probably one of the best. I mean, mimes I've ever seen. If it's a mime, I think they're both Steve Vai, right?
I'm one of the sickest air drummers ever, dude.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah, dude.
So, well, Joel, in the movie and on the soundtrack, Vai does both parts. He does his part as the Devil's guitar player, Jack Butler, and he does Ralph Macchio's guitar parts too. Also, Steve Vai tutored Ralph Macchio just to get somewhat of the fingerings to be more realistic. And that's a kind of a crash course in playing guitar, if you will.
Yeah.
Trying to make it look screen accurate, but that's some trivia that I picked up.
He did a great job, man. I mean, he was like sliding in the right spots and doing all. I mean, it was like, you could tell he wasn't actually playing it, but you could tell like, as far as like someone that's miming, it's like one of the best mimes I've ever seen. Probably. Right.
I mean, to that average person off the street who doesn't play an instrument, seeing that they wouldn't know, and and all the parts where there's dynamic changes with some of the shit he's playing.
A little bit better than a kung fu movie.
A little better than what?
A little bit better than a dubbed kung fu movie.
yeah.
Which, by the way, Cobra Kai starts tomorrow, season 4.
I was just gonna say, do you watch Cobra Kai?
I really like that series.
Yeah, me too.
Dude,
yeah. Pretty good.
Yeah, that's one of those shows that me and my wife like to watch too. It's fun. You get nostalgia out of it.
It starts tomorrow.
The nostalgia, they do really good. They do really good at like bringing you back to that time. Like,
and they do good at making fun of what they used to think was sick back then.
Yeah,
exactly. Hidden jokes.
Oh, exactly. There's a lot of that 80s rock and metal. I
just love how he's like, you want to be badass
or whatever.
You gotta be badass, dude.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, the guy, the character in Cobra Kai, this is relevant to this spiel I'm giving you on my history of what I listened to as a kid. Johnny, the blonde hair guy in Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
Last season, he wore a fucking zebra shirt. That band Zebra, wearing that in a couple of the episodes. I told my wife, I'm like, look, he's wearing a zebra shirt. I've never seen anyone wear a zebra shirt, man. That's fucking like dead accurate for the time. Johnny would have been a hot stud teenage guy.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that Kramer guitar I bought looked like Jack Butler's guitar from Crossroads. So I wanted that. And that was my first electric guitar. And then, as time went on, I got more and more serious about playing and took guitar lessons. And then so much shit musically came my way in a short period of time. So by the time I got my first electric guitar and I had been turned on to all these bands that the skateboarder friend of mine turned me on to, again, Slayer's early stuff, Metallica's first 2 albums. Right after that, the year 1986 fucking came upon us, and Master of Puppets came out, Slayer, Rain and Blood, Megadeth, Peace Sells, Dark Angel, Darkness Descends was out. Corrosion Animosity album was out. I remember that. I was getting into heavier and heavier and heavier shit. And then I was taking guitar lessons from a great teacher who was classically trained, like a legit classical guitar player, a legit expert on music theory and all this stuff. But he was also in this amazing thrash metal band called Numbskull. And Numbskull at the time had an album out, their first album, Ritually Abused. So I thought this guy was like God, because he had everything I was looking for in a guitar teacher. This guy was it, because I wanted to learn principles of music, some music theory, but I also wanted to learn all these heavy metal techniques, riffing, whether it's James Hetfield, Jeff Hanneman, other guys. I wanted to learn how they fucking played that stuff. And this teacher,
he was the whole package. Yeah, he's the whole package then.
And then so I started learning more. All I did was fucking play guitar every waking moment. I wasn't in school or doing anything. I was playing guitar constantly. And I started writing my own songs at an early age. As I'm 16, 16, 17. I didn't want to be a guy who played covers in a cover band. I had grown up in my teenage years now, going into high school, with all these guys that were in bands. Mind you, I'm back in Illinois at this time too. So I'm in
up to 16, moved back at 16
area. Yeah. By 1986, I was in Illinois, back in the burbs of Chicago. And all these guys I went to school with that played, instruments, they were all in cover bands. And they were into shit that I was not into, like at the time, hair metal stuff. They were in it for pussy. That's what they were picking it. I was like, I'm like, no, man, I'm here to write music that'll rip your fucking head off. Even as a young guy, I knew that in my head, right? Like, I know what I want to do. And they'd be like, telling me, at the time, thrash was really big. Dark Angel was even above Slayer for a minute, was my favorite band. So I get shit from these guys saying, that thrash metal sucks. And then in my pursuit of heavier and heavier music, because I couldn't get enough of heavier, more extreme music, I discovered death metal. So in some of the inklings, the first shit I'd hear were like Celtic Frost. And then Death, of course, came along, then Sepultura. And then, by the time I'm 18, 19, now I'm immersed in so much great fucking metal. I'm talking Morbid Angel, Carcass, Terrorizer, who to this day is one of my favorite bands of all time, like the grind side of stuff. Napalm,
dude,
1000%.
Jeffrey
Cantata, man.
And it went from there. So by the time I was a senior in high school, I had already met my singer Joe, who was the original singer for Broken Hope, and we were like, we formed a band, and we're gonna, I was turning him on to death metal, and he was into thrash, and he was also into a lot of these punk and hardcore bands.
So you guys met up after you had already been introduced to the more extreme sides of metal and shit.
Right. We were in high school together. So as my tastes were evolving into heavier stuff, Joe and I had been friends. We rode a school bus together. We lived in the same neighborhood. So I would turn him on to bands he hadn't heard. He would turn me on to bands that I hadn't heard at the time. So for example, he was really into like Crumb Suckers and Mucky Pup and SOD and a bunch of other band Cro-Mags and stuff and hardcore punk. And then the bands I was into, like some of which was hardcore, like Agnostic Front and Corrosion Conformity, specifically the Animosity album, and then death metal. Like I turned Joe on to Morbid Angel,
Cryptic Slaughter.
You know, Cryptic Slaughter, man, fucking Joe loved worship.
Yeah.
He shoved Cryptic Slaughter down my throat.
Right. One of the first blast beats, man.
I told Scotty from Cryptic Slaughter a few years ago how much Joe loved Cryptic Slaughter. He fucking just fucking loved that band. So he ran Cryptic Slaughter down my throat. A really cool thing. One time, this is just relevant to Cryptic Slaughter and just a little bit of trivia or something. But I had some of the guys like from Municipal Waste, Iron Reagan, stayed at my house one time, like several years ago. And Tony, the singer of Municipal Waste, had a Cryptic Slaughter hoodie. And I was like, dude, fuck, I gave him the whole spiel about how Joe worshiped Cryptic Slaughter and turned me on to him and blah, blah, blah. And Tony had gotten that hoodie from, I think it was from Scotty from Cryptic Slaughter. And so, but Tony gave it to me in honor of Joe. And I always thought that was just so fucking cool of him to do. But
oh man, that's super rad.
That's super rad.
That was really cool. So
to both of them, huh?
It's wild to think, before you keep going, now that you were just bringing up Joe, it's wild to think that you introduced him to death metal, and now he's kind of like the origins of that guttural style, dude. Like
totally, dude.
Yeah.
Like all that shit, so many vocalists are trying to do what that dude kind of like invented, you know?
Yeah, it is funny when you think about me turning Joe onto what we would call the legendary death metal bands like Morbid Angel, for example. And the thing was, and this is relevant to Joe's vocal approach, was, for example, when I had bands that Joe and I loved were like when we were tape trading and all this shit, you know, when Broken Hope formed, we formed that band and named that band right as we were graduating high school. And soon after, we had, you know, a couple demos out and got our first record deal. But there was this window of time where certain bands and albums on Earache, records, you couldn't get those albums in any store. They didn't have licensing in the United States, like in 1989. We would have to buy Altars of Madness or Terrorizer's World Downfall, or, you know, Entombed, Carcass, Paradise Lost's first album, Lost Paradise. Those were imports, and they cost a fucking fortune back in the day. Be like $30 back then for a CD. But
crazy.
By that time, you know, I was working and graduated high school. So what money I could save, I would buy all these import CDs. And that's how I turned this stuff on to Joe, because Joe didn't have the means to go buying a bunch of import CDs. So it was a cool thing because Joe turned me on to bands I didn't know about, and I turned him on to this stuff. So when we started Broken Hope, you know, we were like really into Death and Obituary's first album, Slowly We Rot. And it was Ross from Immolation who one day gave me via mail, he made me a cassette of all these bands that he had music from. And one of the bands, well, by the way, I was really into Immolation's demos. They were before they even had an album.
Man,
they're always always good though, bro.
That was like the path Joe and I were on, you know, with death metal. We knew, bro. I mean, Broken Hope was definitely when we formed the band. We were a fucking death metal band in our mission.
Yeah. You got a dark groove for sure.
Right, the heaviest, catchiest fucking music, right? Yep. You know, Diego, that's what I'm talking about exactly. So, so when we got this tape from Ross of Immolation one day, and he had a demo of he had all these demos of these bands. He had Paradise Lost demo, and I remember Ross in his letter said, "Wait till you hear this band, Paradise Lost. They're the heaviest fucking band ever. Just listen to them." And we also had like Deicide's demo, which was really fucking heavy.
They were called Amon or some shit back then, right?
Yeah, they were Amon. Ross also sent me a demo by a band called Nihilist, who were Entombed.
Yep.
Later, and so we were like, "Wow, this is fucking awesome!" And like that to this day, that first Paradise Lost album, Lost Paradise, is one of my favorite death metal albums, and it was also a huge influence on Joe. He loved that album too, so much. And when we were doing our first demo and writing more and more original music, I distinctly remember Joe and I talking about vocals and his vocal approach. And at the time, you had David Vincent, you had Jeff Walker, and you had John Tardy of Obituary and Chuck Schuldiner. These were like quick references of like brutal vocal style, this and that.
Well, and Bill Steer and the drummer for Carcass too, but they had like their harmonizers as opposed to their natural vocals.
In fact, that's why I mentioned Bill Steer with Jeff Walker, because Bill would do those sick, gurgly, real. Right. Joe and I would be like, "What the fuck did he just say?" Well,
and then the drummer comes on.
Exactly. I love that shit.
So good.
So Joe, in his wisdom and working on his craft, he was like, he never took like vocal lessons or anything, but he got these tips on, I think, his mom had some kind of experience with singing, and she had said, sing from your diaphragm, not your throat, and this and that. Gave him just some tips, and he really took that to heart. And he said, if we're going to be on this mission to be the heaviest death metal band possible, I'm really going to go for this guttural approach. And mind you, everyone knows the term guttural. No bullshit. Never
not
even
back then, though.
Joe's the one who used that word guttural.
Dude, that's so good.
And he just evolved from there. And he had that in his head, and it just worked out for the chemistry and ingredients we put together for Broken Hope.
Got that fat beard too to make him all
right.
Quick side note: I'm listening to Lost Paradise right now, and what the fuck? This is like so good. And I'm like listening to The song Paradise Lost.
The whole fucking album, man.
It's so good. I'm like, what the fuck?
The fucking shit. Paradise Lost, each album.
Kind of like Madonna, you know?
So separate. Nothing like that first album, and it's very special, man.
It's crazy, man. It's like right in the same vein as everything that was coming out, but a way different, a little darker, adding the like weird dark harmonies and dark riffs in the background and shit.
They toured with Cannibal or something too, didn't they, back in the day?
Who, Paradise Lost?
Yeah. I think on the...
They toured with Morbid Angel.
Oh, more? Okay, that's what it was. Yeah, for Blessed Are the Sick, yeah?
And Creator, too. They were on the
Coma Souls.
Yep. So, anyway,
I saw that shit too.
That's kind of how my listening for pleasure and seeking heavier and heavier music went hand in hand with what my personal tastes were, you know, what I wanted to listen to as a fan and what I wanted to pick up as a guitar player, you know. At the time, again, late 80s, early 90s, and all this stuff culminated to writing music nonstop and, you know, improving our musicianship. And then eventually we got a record deal.
So wait, let's back it up real quick, because you were talking about you and Joe wanting to start the band, but we never really got into like how it really got the ball rolling and all that shit. Who else you got in the mix and how all that shit worked
out. So we had I'm really gonna go deep here with this.
Dude, this is exactly where you can go deep.
Before Broken Hope, like as we know, Broken Hope, just even the name and where we went from that point forward. Before that, Joe and I did have startup bands in high school. And one band that we had, we called Decimation. And what's kind of funny is I soon learned, like, outside of the little capsule I was in the burbs of Chicago, there's a whole world out there full of metal bands and tape traders and all this. And I had yet to get involved in the underground tape trade and pick up magazines from Europe. You know, I was reading magazines here in the States. I was only as good as what I had contact with. But there was this period where I eventually met some great guys. Again, Ross from Immolation, a guy named Ed Farshty, who had this awesome fanzine called The Book of Armageddon, and John McEntee before Incantation. All these guys, Will Raymer, Mortician. I made all these connections. All these guys actually came to my house where I lived with my dad for this one Milwaukee Metal Fest 3 way back in the day. And
how long has that been going on, dude?
I could have all these guys, party, do whatever. So I had all these guys stay at my house, and I made these connections. And in turn, those connections, those are the guys that turned me on to the death metal underground and tape trading. And then I was picking up magazines from Europe, like Metal Forces and Kerrang, from this one record store that carried that stuff. So I soon learned that I named my band Decimation with Joe, but there was already like 12 other Decimations out there. And all this stuff. So we changed the name from that to like Vile Demise. I remember that was one name we had. And again, I'm writing all original stuff, and Joe and I are jamming with guys from high school, only because this guy's got a drum set that his mom bought him. We could jam at his house. And, when you're young and you're jamming, for all you guys that have been in bands, maybe you share this experience, but it's trial and error. You don't really understand when you're jamming with people that some are dedicated, some aren't. You have musical differences. And believe me, everyone Joe and I were jamming with, they had no clue what death metal was. You know, the fucking heaviest band they ever heard was either Exodus or Metallica or something, you know.
Yeah, polka beats all around, huh?
You know, yeah. So we were continuously, Joe and I were continuously trying to find the right guys to jam with. And what happened was, after Decimation and Vile Demise, I never stopped writing music. And I also wrote all the lyrics for all the bands that Joe and I did. Joe would come up with ideas and stuff, but I was always a writer. In fact, my love of writing goes back to childhood. Yeah. And I started writing my first short stories and everything, you know, while I was still in grade school. I was really into writing. So writing stories and stuff, fiction, came before me being a musician. So when I finally did become a guitar player and, you know, form bands, it just came natural to me to write lyrics. And in fact, a couple guys who influenced my lyric writing who didn't sing were like Gene Hoglan of Dark Angel wrote these badass lyrics for Dark Angel. And, you know, my hero, Jeff Hanneman, he was writing these goddamn awesome lyrics for Slayer. But he didn't sing. So I was thinking, wow, if these guys do that, I could do that for my band. So that always worked out. So point of mentioning all that is I continued writing lyrics and riffs as Joe and I continued trying to put bands together.
Not to segue too much, but what we have a question from you keep bringing up Jeff Hanneman. So you know, we have a question from Jesse, who's been from Incinerate, who's been on here. He's saying that you have like an original Jeff Hanneman guitar or something like that.
Yeah, I've got well, that's a whole other convo. If you want to pin that.
Okay, let's pin that. Let's go back to it. We'll go back to it because I've been marinating on that for a long. Like, what the fuck? Because it's that would be that's like one of the top pieces of my life to have. You know.
Oh yeah, it's not just one. I've got like several of Jeff's guitars.
Jesus. Okay, we'll get back to it. We'll get back. We'll bring it back up.
So back to so me writing lyrics and writing riffs, and Joe and I trying to make a band. It's funny because when I was a teenager and I started my first lyrics that I was writing, I would write, they're pretty corny lyrics when I think about it, because I was writing about like killing posers.
Yeah, kind of punk rock stuff.
Metal.
That was a serious thing back then, though.
No, I didn't quite.
Posers will die.
Complete my love of my passion for horror that obviously plays a huge role in my lyrics in all of Broken Hope's history. I was all about, again, killing posers, moshing, you know, metal is the greatest, you know, that was like my early
death to false metal.
Yes, exactly.
Were you mad at an ex-girlfriend during the writing of Remember My Members?
There was well, that's another thing.
Those are rad lyrics, dude.
I'll put a pin in.
Yeah, why is everybody trying to steer him off course right now?
He's got such a long history, man.
I did say in an interview like a year or two ago when I wrote the album Bowels of Repugnance, which has the song Remember My Members, that album was a lot of that album was written in the midst of me being completely pissed off at life. And some of it had to do with the girlfriend. Some of it had to do with my living situation and where I was at life. And I'm very thankful for that anger because it made me write a very vicious fucking Broken Hope album. But I'll tell you about that. We we got to do the evolution, bro. We got to get.
Sorry.
Oh. This interview will be done in 8 hours.
Yeah, you got it.
I got to work tomorrow, dude.
It's funny you mentioned that, Diego, because that's a fucking. But so anyway, in our search for Joe and I, in our search for finding the right people to jam with in a band, I got wind of this sick drummer that was from a nearby town called Antioch, Illinois, and that drummer.
Oh, shit. Wait, real quick. I know everybody's doing it, but Steve's from Antioch. He was just on the last episode. Not Antioch, Georgia.
California.
Yeah. I didn't know there was another one. All right.
There was another one, yeah. And what's funny about that, Anthony, is when I first discovered Hiatus through the underground tape trading shit. Hiatus's demos and everything were everywhere. Plus, I'd always see Chuck from Death wearing Hiatus shirts and stuff. And when I started collecting fanzines or flyers for demos and see Hiatus, I'd always see Antioch, California. I'm like, what? There's another Antioch?
Hell yeah. Sick, dude.
So anyway, Antioch, Illinois is where Ryan Stanek was from, our drummer for Broken Hope, original drummer. And so through a friend who knew Ryan and told me about Ryan, he said, hey, Ryan would like to meet you. He's looking to form a band. And he's jamming with this guy. He said you could drop by the rehearsal and talk and check him out, maybe jam with him. So when I first met Ryan Stanek, he was really young. I mean, he was like 16. And he had this huge white drum set. It was super fucking big. And I was very impressed by that, because he had these 2 double bass drums and rototoms and all this shit. I'm like, wow, this guy, just look at his drum set. This guy means business, So I sat back and he started playing, what the fuck was it? Criminally Insane or Piece by Piece or something off Slayer's Rain of Blood. And I was just like, I'd never seen a drummer locally who fucking could play, Dave Lombardo style drums. So my jaw dropped. I'm like, this fucking kid's got it. So at the time, this guy he was jamming with who was there, they were playing cover songs. And Ryan was like, well, can you play this song? And I'm like, well, I don't know that song. I don't play covers. I got my own original stuff. So
I'm with you, bro.
What's that?
I said, I'm with you. Play
yeah.
Play that. I'm on no, but I got like 5 or 6 songs I could show you if you want to use them for the band,
Yeah. So that's what I did. I showed him riffs. And this other guy at the time Ryan was with was like real negative and not into anything I had to show Ryan, of course. I don't know if he felt intimidated or whatever. He was another guitar player. So I'm like, all right, whatever. So that we never jammed again. It just didn't work out. And fast forward a few months later, and at my house, when I lived with my dad would always leave on the weekends to go stay at his girlfriend's house. So every weekend I had our whole house to myself, and I would always throw parties every fucking weekend. And
nice.
It was always people I knew that were my age from the neighborhood. And, I had a guy, I mean, we're all underage, but I had a guy I could always get cases of beer from. And, my house was the party place on the weekends. People, my friends and I could drink, jam music, and, people had a place to fucking get laid, like everyone wanted to get out of their parents' house. My place was the place to go. So one night, Ryan Stanek shows up at my house. He wasn't invited. Someone had tipped him off. Oh yeah, Jeremy Wagner, he has these parties on the weekend, swing by. So Ryan came by with another guy who was a guitar player that he was jamming with. And Joe was there, and Joe goes, hey, Jer, well, we started talking about bands and shit, what Ryan was doing then and what Joe and I were doing. And Joe goes, hey, show these guys some of your riffs, your new riffs. So I had like a couple songs completely written start to finish on guitar. And I fucking plugged in my amp and I played all this original stuff. And Ryan and this guitar guy he was with were completely blown away. They were like, holy fuck, this is awesome. No one, how are you writing this shit? Whatever, you know. They were just really impressed and they Ryan wanted to jam with me again. So from what I remember, I said, if I jam with you, Joe comes with me. We're a package deal. Mm-hmm. And he was like, fine, that's cool. So we went the next weekend, Joe and I, to Ryan's house. Ryan lived with his parents. He was still in high school. And he had a jam room in the basement. So I brought my amp over. Joe's with me. There's this little tiny PA, and we're just going to jam through riffs I've written and see what happens. So Ryan and this other guitar player were called Crypt. That was the name they were calling their band. So after we jammed with these guys, this other guitar player, he had some riffs from what I remember, and him and Ryan had songs that they'd done together, and they played those for us. We all liked what was going on, and we decided, hey, let's definitely make a band. So they were adamant, Ryan and this other guitar player were adamant about calling the band Crypt, because that's what they'd been playing under for forever. So Joe and I were like, okay, that's fine. We'll call ourselves Crypt. So we jammed with these two guys for a few months, and over the course of time we were jamming with them, Ryan was really great to deal with, and we were just, the chemistry was right. Joe, Ryan, and I just clicked. That other guitar player was really an asshole. He's a little older than all of us. He was kind of a bully, you know. He'd throw temper tantrums and, you know, try to fight with us if he didn't like the way things were going that weren't going his way. So things eventually happened where that guy got into a fight with Joe and me one day. And we said, that's it. We're fucking done. We're not going to jam with you guys anymore. So we packed our shit up, went back home. And that night, Ryan called us and begged us not to quit on him. He said he wouldn't jam with that other guitar player anymore because he wanted to make sure Joe, Ryan, and me all stayed together. So Joe and I were like, all right, that's cool.
So he obviously felt a chemistry that he didn't feel with that dude.
Yeah, he felt it. And he knew that guy was really a real pushy asshole, and just, and he wasn't, the guy was kind of like, what I recollect, you know, he's like Mr. Know-It-All, my way or the highway. He tried making
prima donna, fucking,
you know, and he wasn't into the kind of music, frankly, that we were into, you know, this heavier and heavier stuff. So the next weekend, Joe and I came back to Ryan's jam spot, set up, and we spent this one day. It was like a Saturday weekend, and we sat down on the floor of the jam spot, and we all had notebooks because we were all going to come up with names for our new band. We were not going to be called Crypt anymore. That was out the window. So as I mentioned to you guys, I was always a writer. So I had all these short stories and like dark poetry things that I had written during high school. And one of these poems I had the name Broken Hope in a line of the poem. And in fact, I know I have it somewhere in my archives. I fucking save everything. And I remember the line was like a woman's, her name was like Tatiana Broken Hope or something. But I thought Broken Hope was a cool name. I put it on the list of names we had. So the three of us, after we spent time writing down names we wanted to call the band and kind of vote on. Broken Hope was the one name that Joe and Ryan really liked. You know, it had to be a unanimous decision. You know, we're naming a fucking band. It's an important. Mm-hmm. And what was really cool that Joe and I discussed and pointed out after, like, he was like, I like the name Broken Hope. Ryan's like, that name's great. And Joe and I were like, no, what's great about the name Broken Hope, it reminds us of a band that we fucking worship, which was Paradise Lost. And Paradise Lost, like Broken Hope, the name.
Yeah.
Like not typical death metal names.
It's still kind of parallel, you know.
But when you hear the name and then the music that goes with it, it all kind of makes sense.
Yeah, the music definitely goes with the name too.
Paradise Lost is bleak and dark and heavy as far as a name. Paradise Lost. And then Broken Hope. I mean, what's, more bleak than your hope being broken?
Being crushed.
You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
Dude, I mean, what I was thinking was like hope for a paradise that's lost. And
hope for a paradise that's lost.
Broken hope. The hope for a paradise is broken and lost.
That's Motown coming out here, bro.
So that's how it happened. That's how came up
that's
with
rad. So I mentioned this, I think it was on our Instagram. What was the artist and the concept like for your logo? Because you guys definitely still to this day have the most, like one of the most sickest logos for sure.
Well, last month was the 30th anniversary of our album Swamped in Gore. Right. So we spent the whole month going down memory lane with some of that evolution. So
I watched that too, and I was actually stoked because I was like, "Yeah, dude, we can talk about this anniversary thing too."
Yeah, right, cool. Right. Yeah, it just happened, last month, the anniversary.
I love how that should happen.
We did is I dug up the original artwork for the Broken Hope logo that you see now, and that logo was done by a guy named Dan Hazy. So. Dan, I don't know whatever became of him. He was a guy from the Chicago metal scene who he was a sick artist. He did logos for other bands. And during Broken Hope's evolution in the early years after we named the band, I had a logo that we used for the band, like on our first demo. And then Ryan had a logo he created that we used for a few things, but none of the logos we hand drew really cut it. They weren't fucking anything great. So this guy, Dan Hazy, who was into Broken Hope, and when I say into Broken Hope, he had only seen us play as a local unsigned band, but he was really crazy about our music. And we didn't even have
did he cruise a practice?
An album yet. We had our demos out, but we didn't have an album. So one day, Dan sends us a couple logos he had done via mail, sent it to our P.O. box that we got all our mail at. And the fucking one design that we held on to which was done in like colored pencil. It's pretty much the logo you see to this day. Over the years, Dan Hazy's logo is morphed and gotten more streamlined, but it's the same logo.
Yeah.
And if you look at the Swamp and Gore album, the original album that came out on Grindcore International, that's the logo Dan Hazy created. And yeah, when we saw that logo that day, we took it out of the envelope, we were fucking blown away. And we're like, that's the logo we're going to use. So that's the logo we've had to this day. But Dan Hazy, all credit goes to him, man. He was, again, this local Chicagoland guy. He might have even been from Indiana, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure. He was from the Midwest, and I think later he went and joined the Navy. And I never heard from him again, but I always remember his name. So that's how the logo happened. And we got that logo right when we got our record deal with Grindcore International. So the timing was right. We had this great logo in place, and then, we did our first album and all that good stuff.
Yeah. How'd you guys come about getting signed for the first time?
We had 2 demos out that had done really well in the death metal underground. And when our second demo came out, we got huge exposure because the demo got reviewed in Metal Maniacs magazine and Metal Forces magazine. And that got us huge exposure, and a ton of people wrote to us at our P.O. box because the magazines put, our fan club address and stuff in there. So we had demos just flying out the door to people worldwide. So that underground network really helped make the band a name out there, and people really knew like who Broken Hope were and all this stuff. And that's what helped us get our first record deal, because the A&R guy at Grindcore International, he knew about the name we had in the underground, and there was kind of a buzz on the band. And it was a time where all these other death metal bands were getting signed left and right. Immolation, Suffocation, Cannibal Corpse, on and on, So you're talking like 1990, 91 is when our album came out, the first album, Swamp and Gore. So that's kind of what really, our name and buzz in the underground is kind of what got us our deal. Plus I think the A&R guy came to see us play a concert live, and that really solidified everything. So I
have the original Swamped and Gore that I actually was my first purchase of the album, not at the time, because like I said, I'm younger, I'm 37, so I came across it used at Amoeba, but it's the original CD release with the old original artwork. Grindcore put it out, because then after that, Metal Blade signed you guys and then bought that contract and re-released it under the Metal Blade.
Yeah.
Right?
That all happened.
New artwork and all that shit.
In short order. Our album came out in November 1991, so 30 years ago last month. After that came out, we were doing regional shows, and we and some other shows out of state. And then we got offered to do a mini tour of Canada. So it was the first time we ever had gone to Canada. And now by this time, it's 1992, and Milwaukee Metal Fest 6 was happening that summer of 92. And when we were asked to play that, and that was a huge fucking opportunity for us. One, it was the biggest show that we would have played to date at the time. There was like 6,000 people there. It was in this arena, Mecca Arena in Milwaukee.
So that shit started in 86?
What's
you said it. You just said Milwaukee Metal Fest 6 and 8 in 92.
6.
So, and that was in 92. So that means in 86 was when they started doing that festival, huh?
They started it sometime in the 80s. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly when.
I'm just saying, did they do it annually? Was that what it was?
They did it annually. Yeah, it'd probably be 86 or.
Yeah, I just reversed. Yeah, I just subtracted 6 and
did math. Yeah.
So
I did some.
Yeah, it had been around a while. So when we did that Milwaukee Metal Fest show, Swamp Thing Gore hadn't even been out a full year. It was really amazing for us because like King Diamond introduced Broken Hope. It was fucking so just really
Jesus.
And then when we went on, the place just went fucking nuts.
Like King Diamond himself came out and was like the MC hype man for Broken Hope.
He was doing he was emceeing,
like hosting the show, basically, like
the show. And so was Ricky Rackman from Headbangers Ball. He was the other MC.
What a trip!
So, yeah, King Diamond. If you go on YouTube, you can see it. We also have a documentary DVD on the band that came out in 2013, and we have that footage of King Diamond. But he's like, "Please welcome Grindcore International recording artist," and then like in his fucking falsetto voice, "Broken Heart." Like, fuck,
I did.
It was fucking great, and again. We just brought the fucking house down. We fucking went up there and just played for whatever.
How stoked were you on that? Like when you're waiting and you're hearing King Diamond fucking introducing you, dude.
Oh, dude, it was mind blowing, surreal. Like, can't believe it.
I bet, dude.
I'm 21 years old and like I love King Diamond. I grew up with him, you know. Like,
I know, dude. That's fucking wild.
So, as it happened. Like Marco Barbieri and Brian Slagle from Metal Blade Records were there, and they saw our whole show, and they were like, "This fucking band's fucking badass." Well, I had turned my intentions for the Broken Hope's future to getting on a bigger label. We only had to do one album with Grindcore, so we weren't like locked down for a multi-album deal. So I started hitting up labels, and when I hit up Metal Blade, Marco Barbieri and Brian were like, "Yeah, you guys, you're not tied down to Grindcore. We saw you at Milwaukee Metal Fest 6. You guys were fucking badass. Let's talk." So we talked, and we did a demo for Metal Blade only that wasn't like released, and it had like 3 songs that would be on our next album, Bowels or Repugnance. And they fucking loved it and then offered us a deal, and the rest is history.
Did you give them that bestie on the demo?
Was one of them Hobo Stew?
I know one of them was, I don't know if Hobo Stew was in there. I know the song Waterlogged was on there. And maybe
the intro,
maybe the Dead Half was on there. Too.
Oh man!
But we got the deal from them, and when we signed with them, I was like, "Fucking, can you guys get our first album, re-release it? You know, we'd love to have Metal Blade have the full catalog." And Grindcore, worked out a deal, and they Metal Blade basically bought Swamp Thing Gore, and boom, we're off and running. And then throughout the whole 90s, all our albums were put out through Metal Blade, and Swamp Thing Gore, again, back to the underground name and all that shit we had made for ourselves. That underground work really helped us with like when our album came out, because that album, Swamp Thing Gore, sold like 10,000 copies. Right after when it was released, it went through 2 pressings and did really well. And anyway, we're on Metal Blade now, and boom, we were already writing the next album, Bowels of Repugnance. And, we were just had a flame lit under our asses. We were just out to just keep putting out albums and tour and do everything.
So does it feel like the speed kicks up even more with Bowels of Repugnance, all the touring and shit to support that record?
Yeah. I mean, first off, when you talk about speed kicking up, the speed on like musically kicked up on Bowels. As I mentioned to Diego, I remember writing that album. Brian Griffin and I were roommates for years. So we were roommates. Like right after I graduated high school, I moved into this apartment he had, and he wasn't even in Broken Hope then. He joined Broken Hope prior to us doing our second demo, and then working, producing our albums and everything. So when I lived in that apartment with Brian, during that time, 1992 is when I was really focused on writing the next album. And I was really pissed off at life. We lived in this attic apartment and in this house. So it was 3 stories high. The very top was an apartment, no air conditioning, extremely hot in the summertime. It's the fucking, basically, we're in an attic.
Yeah, dude. If you've ever climbed into an attic in the summer, it fucking sucks.
Brutal. Yeah, it's horrible. So we lived like that. Also, I had a part-time, horribly shitty job. I had a car that was just a piece of shit. It was I had a Renault Alliance, which was a French car. And then after that, I had a Chevette that had the driver's side door, you had to lift up and put.
That's actually more common than you think.
Shut it. And the windshield wasn't sealed and water would come in when it rained while you're driving. My existence was meager, to say the least, barely making ends meet. I was skinny as a rail. I had mac and cheese probably once a day from the store because I was super cheap. That's all I could afford. And then I had girl problems too. I had this girlfriend who was a fucking complete psycho. She would attack me and go nuts. And of course I was crazy for her. Right. So all these factors, my personal life.
Remember my members, you schizophrenic bitch.
Right, yes. So, and she came out in chunks. Don't forget that, Diego. Same album. So, but all these things
real good
inspired me. I put it all into my guitar because the one thing in my life that was reliable was my guitar was always there for me. And I had this band that was already off and running. We had a debut album out, right in the second one. We're on Metal Blade. And I was laser focused to write a sick album. But all this shit in my life that pissed me off, I was able to tunnel and vent in. So that album is pure rage for me. It's I don't know, some magazine back when that album came out, I forgot what mag it was. It was Rip magazine or something said Bowels of Repugnance is Broken Hope's Rain and Blood because it's just short and ferocious, And I really love that album. I love Bowels of Repugnance. But
I was gonna say it's a callback to what we were talking about earlier, calling this a therapy.
Yeah.
Lay it out in the studio, lay it out on the stage, and now you're talking about it. This is an album that was happening right at the time that you needed to let off the most steam, exactly. and it filtered through the bowels of Repugnance, dude.
It did. And I I can remember sitting on like a bar stool in that apartment, plugged into a practice amp, and the riffs were just fucking flowing. It was like one song after another, and I would record, so I didn't forget riffs. I'd record on a cassette recorder, and then go to band practice and get with Ryan and go, hey, here's some more songs. And then when that album came out, that's when we really had great opportunities to start happening for us, tour offers. We were doing like real tours and shit. And it was a good time,
Fuck yeah, dude. I mean, that's your first.
That came out in 93, that album.
So what death metal band influenced your drummer to just throw in those like because he had one of the fastest blast beats, like the Cepho blast.
Even on Swamp Tear is fucking fast as fuck.
Man, Ryan was like, as a drummer, he was really into Neil Peart, I remember, which obviously there's no fucking blast beats there. And Dave Lombardo, again, no blast. It was, I would say Ryan, much like Joe, because the three of us were, the founding fathers of Broken Hope, and we were together all the time. Ryan was a guy like Joe who benefited from me turning him on to Morbid Angel and Terrorizer. So Sandoval, who's fucking, to me, to this day, a god, one of my favorite drummers of all time.
1000%.
Terrorizer. I'm like, dude, listen to this. And fucking that clicked with Ryan. And Ryan was he was a drummer's drummer. He was a guy working on his craft. Always awesome. He wasn't jamming with the band. He was on his own, constantly working on techniques and whatnot. And Diego, to that question about Ryan and how he got that blast down, I just chalk it up to, again, him hearing bands or drummers like Pete Sandoval, and then taking that to another level. You know what? In those days, on all those albums in the 90s, he never used a metronome or nothing, man. He was
solid too.
He was doing his own thing. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's definitely a precise sound that he had, dude. And what I also love about, just to add to what you guys are talking about and how he is as a drummer, he's also very comfortable at slower tempos as well. I love how Broken Hope was like, all you guys want to blast the fastest, we're gonna take it down, we're gonna fucking blast at this speed, like Pitbull Grin style, and fucking and we're gonna stay in that pocket, and you guys are actually gonna feel that, because it was like a actually beating you with it,
There's multiple types of aggression through slow and fast in death metal.
Totally. And
they make the stank face at a slow thing to be another stank face at a fast one. It's there's different pockets you can hang in, and just a fucking.
I'd say for all the bands back then, Broken Hope was the most down to groove. Groove was.
Give you just a little taste of doom, huh?
Yeah, it was just but it's just they're more so getting you to move and shit, and it doesn't matter what tempo or feel it's at, but it's groove was just as important, and other bands at that time were just trying to be fast, but listen to Swamp and Gore, there's certain riffs that just make you want to stomp around your room and shit,
Right. Yeah. Right. There, we always. Well, when I say I'll speak for myself personally. I always write music that I love to hear as a fan, and in turn, something that gives me joy to perform. And the elements of death metal and grind that appeal to me, are I love blast beats. I love. Again, I keep dropping Pete Sandoval's name, but World Downfall, has this precise blasting like you never heard. It's contained. It's so extreme. It's just special. And there's something about grind done right. Same with fucking Napalm Death. I worship Napalm Death. Even Suffocation, the first album, Effigy of the Forgotten, the blasting on there is precise and it's lethal. Those are examples of blasting that I like. Mm-hmm. I love the grind and play fast, but I like to mix it up too. Again, as a fan and someone who gets pleasure out of playing music, I love a motherfucking heavy ass riff that's catchy as fuck. The kind of riff that, one, you can't get out of your head. The hooks are just so memorable. And then it's so heavy I've used this example ton of times in interviews, but I always say this: the kind of riff that makes you want to smash your fucking face through a cinder block or a plate glass window, because it's just so fucking. And those are things that I love and I still draw from, whether it was from Swamp and Gore to this very day. I'm talking to you guys
totally
practically on New Year's Eve 2021.
That's actually everybody's New Year's Eve by the time they hear this. So
yeah, right. Yeah. Happy New Year, everyone.
Hell yeah.
Those are components that go into my writing style and that I feel represents Broken Hope.
Definitely.
Group is essential, memorable riffs, grind. It just all works together. You know, that when it comes to technical death metal, for me personally, the closest we've got to being super technical is on our 5th album. And it was like,
that's Grotesque, right?
Grotesque Blessings, yeah.
Yeah. I was waiting to get to that because that was one of those.
Is just like Loathing had some technical stuff, right? That was the album before Grotesque Blessings. But Grotesque was where things took a major step up with technicality. And a lot of that had to do with Brian Griffin and also the state of Broken Hope during that songwriting process for that album, because we had lost our drummer, Ryan Stanek. We parted ways with him. We didn't have a bass player anymore. It was really Joe, Brian Griffin, and me. And then we had hired hands. So instead of writing as a group, like we always did, I mean, when I say writing as a group, I'd always write riffs at home, bring them to the band, we'd work on together. This time I was isolated writing by myself with no drummer. Brian was doing the same. And then we had a hired gun drummer that would work with my songs and Brian's. And it was just a real different process and stuff. And I was also busy doing other things in my life at the time. So Brian wrote a lot of the music on Grotesque, and he had just kicked things up to a fucking level of technicality that we had never touched before. And when I listen to Grotesque Blessings, the real technical songs like Wolf Among Sheep, to Brian's credit, that guitar work, what he wrote is just fucking floors me. And it's just super crazy in his approach and in that level of technicality. On the flip side of that, I enjoy listening to that, but I did not like playing that kind of music. I found when I played something like Wolf Among Sheep, anything super technical, it gets to a certain point where I feel like, I don't know, I'm giving a guitar lesson or something.
Yeah, it does. I like
the groove.
You're not hyper focused on like the crowd or anything. You're just like hyper focused on like, I got to nail this. Fuck, this is like all this shit's going on. Yeah.
Super focused on what I'm playing note for note. And Brian's guitar work on that is so fucking good. I mean, he's such a sick fucking guitar player. But for me personally, again, that's just not my style, I guess. Again, I like groove, I like the blast. Yeah, we've always had a technical element in the band.
But obviously, since the album came out, Jeremy, since the album came out and you were performed on it, obviously it's like you were down to take chances with the project still and see what could come from it, and either way, it's like things are always learning experiences along the way.
Yeah.
So it's like it's always the next one for us.
It's the same as like Hemispheres for Rush. Like they did their Crazy Hemispheres album, and you watch their documentary and they're like, we're not doing that shit again. It's like they're like it was crazy. It was pushing the boundaries, but like they're all like,
it's more of an experiment.
Yeah,
exactly, Joel. It's one of those albums where like there's hardcore fans who love Grotesque Blessings. They really love that album. It's an album we don't really play any tracks off that album live. Now, to that end, there are a couple tracks I'm actually relearning right now. So like Chemically Castrated, we're going to try to bring that back hopefully next year when we start doing shows and whatnot, because I feel it's important to try and weave in something from our entire catalog. But that album is just a weird place in time, and after that album came out, and to be clear, I love that album. It's a very special album.
Yeah, no, it doesn't sound like you're saying anything bad about it at all.
And it's the last album Joe Thychek ever did while he was alive. So that has an important meaning to myself, Broken Hope history. But again, the band was kind of in this weird flux. Longtime members gone, people in their own worlds. And right after that album came out, Joe actually quit the band. He never toured on that album. We had different guys. It was all hired guns. At the end, it was Brian Griffin and me with hired guns filling in all these on tour. And that's what actually led up to
pain in the ass, man.
Going on hiatus for 10 years. Because by 2002, when we wrapped up the last shows we ever did, I kind of threw in the towel. I'm like, this doesn't feel like Broken Hope. We're constantly getting different guys to play on tour. It's not what the band was. Joe's gone, Ryan's gone. When we can get our shit together, let's do the band properly and, come back, do a new album. That said, I didn't know we'd be gone for a fucking decade. A lot changed. We never got to come right back. And then, but we finally were able to do, or I was able to do it, right around 2011. I started jamming with our drummer, Mike, who's in the band now. He's been jamming with me for 10 years now or so. And
during that hiatus, you always kept on shredding though, just at home.
Yeah, I did a band called Lupara that did one album. And we did a video that got nominated for Best Metal Video because Headbangers Ball at the time had returned. Jamie Josta was hosting it. So yeah, I was still writing music. I was still trying to do something. And
how'd that feel to think about Headbangers Ball back in the day and then be like, oh shit.
I know that I have these little surreal things. The older I get, these little things come around full circle for me. And
I feel the same way, dude. I think it happens.
Like, I'm always like, wow, the teenager inside me is freaking out right now. I can't believe this. So, but anyway, Broken Hope, when I started jamming with Mike in 2011, we were going to do a grindcore band called Earthburner, which I had written stuff for. And we actually did an EP and a video for that that I self-financed, and you can hear the EP and see the video. It's out there. And that was pure grind. That was like Terrorizer worship. That was my whole thing. And I thought maybe Earthburner would be what I was going to do full time for musically. And then I'd been talking to, before Earthburner, before I even jammed with Mike, when Joe was still alive, Joe and I reconnected and talked about bringing Broken Hope back. But then when Joe died, I'm like, fuck. I go, I don't think I'm going to do this. And what happened was I got together with Mike, started doing Earthburner. And for fun, we started fucking around with Broken Hope songs just to jam on them. And next thing I know, we're jamming like, 8 to 10 Broken Hope songs. And it was a lot of fun. And I was hearing from people after Joe died, like, hey, you're still here. You're Jeremy Wagner. Broken Hope's your baby. Bring the band back. And, I was giving it thought. It wasn't until we got approached by a management company and a booking agent together and said, you may not know it, but there's a real love and interest in Broken Hope. We have promoters around the world that would love to have you come back, blah, blah, blah. Here's what we could offer you. And so I took it seriously. I already knew Mike could play the stuff, and it was just a matter of getting the right personnel. And it's like, who the fuck is gonna try and fill Joe Thychek's shoes, right? So I reached out to a few different vocalists. I even hit up John Gallagher of Dying Fetus. He's always been a great friend and loved Broken Hope. And
that would have been.
We talked about having him be the vocalist, but that didn't work out. And so there was a few other people, and then finally Damien. I reached out to him, and it was like meant to be. Because
were you familiar with Gorgasm when you reached out to him?
Was I familiar with Gorgasm?
Yeah.
Oh, I was familiar with Gorgasm. Because they're from Chicago.
Chicago, yeah.
And so I've always known about them.
You know the Incestuous guys then too, huh?
And who?
Wrench. Danny.
Incestuous guys, he said? The Incestuous guys?
Oh, I know of some of those guys. Yeah. I don't know them personally.
Oh, okay.
But
it's funny the different circles.
From so we were like in the northern burbs. I think those guys are all from the south side.
Right.
A lot of great bands from the south side of Chicago. But Damien was always dead on, with his vocals. He was guttural, extreme. And once we got to talking and I got to know him more, Damien's a guy who really works on his craft of being a sick vocalist. Like he practices his vocal style outside of band practice. He'll practice in a car to music. He'll practice at home. And he took being our vocalist very seriously, when we talked to him. And it worked out fucking great. So once we had Mike and Damien, that was really the core of Broken Hope. That really was the catalyst, along with this management company, to really make the band a thing again. So once we filled in,
what year is this?
This would have been 2011
Okay.
when we were assembling everything. By that time, by 2012, we had a full lineup, and that's when we did an announcement that we're officially back, and we had already secured a major North American tour as direct support to Obituary. And we did this fucking great tour in 2012 with them. And on that tour, that's when Century Media came to see us on that tour. We played the Key Club in Hollywood, and Robert Camp from Century Media offered us a record deal right there and then. So
that's rad. There's some actually a side note real quick on this, because I wanted to bring this up just to be like, I don't even know if you knew about this, but on that tour that you're talking about, there were some dates that Damien couldn't do. And I'm sitting at a Denny's and my bass player, I don't know if you know this, but I'm the vocalist of Severed Savior. I don't know if you know that band, but
I do. And Damien wore your band's shirts a lot. He had a Severed Savior shirt.
So he toured with Severed before I was in the band. So he made a good connection with them back in the day and stuff like that. And fast forward to 2012, I'm on tour with Severed at a Denny's, and Murray tells me like, "Hey, dude, you want to do some dates with Broken Hope?" And at that time, I'm like, "Fuck, dude, that would be so sick." But my first son was 9 months old at the time, and I was already kind of fucking feeling like, God, I've been away from home for 2.5 weeks already at the time when I got the call or whatever. And I'm like, dude, I got to decline it just because I'm like, I already miss my family. The touring thing is so hard when you got family, dude. Like, I don't like to leave my kids for too long. I don't even like to leave my kids to go to work, dude. You know?
I know.
I just want to stay home and fucking freak out with them, dude, and do some, I just want to be dad.
I used to, I'd do anything back in the day to tour. I didn't give a fuck. Throw me in a minivan. I'll do 100 dates in a fucking minivan.
We're talking 20s, early 20s, no problem.
I'm all about fly dates in and out, do some great shows and fucking call it a day. I honestly hate touring now, which I never thought younger.
If I could do it the way that you just mentioned, which is fly in, fly out, or, drive here, drive back, and do like weekend warrior shit all the time. And that's, something that we could still do. And I'm totally open for that, obviously,
with all the festivals, there's festivals. Like I was going to say, we talked about it earlier, pre-pod, is that I saw Jeremy with Broken Hope at Psycho Fest, and it was a fucking sick ass show. And then they played a couple other shows, and then he went home. It was like, that's it. Boom, 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 done.
That's what I'm talking about, Joel. Like when we did Psycho San Diego and LA, bam, bam, bam. That was fucking perfect. Flew in. The shows were fucking great. We hadn't played in forever, and that was really wonderful, and Anthony, to your point too, like I'm at a place where, I miss my family within 24, 48 hours. Like, I want to be home with my wife. I miss my fucking dog, whatever.
Right. Yeah. I want to fucking play Legos with my kids, dude. I mean, I love to make music. I love to play music, and I'll never stop. But like now, as a family man, that's a slice of me now, dude. And I really like to be there in that. So as much as I can get it, and touring is not a way to fucking get that. So that's my point, is like hitting those 3 shows. It's like, you don't have to play fucking Omaha with fucking 72 people, 45 people. You don't have to play. I mean, no offense to Omaha. But you don't have to play like those places that the shows suck in, like, and then you hit the cool shows, like in between all these shitty shows. Like you just you go banger, banger, banger home, Yeah. Like 2022 Odious Mortem Festival spots are open. Just fucking make sure we're paid, and I get to come back to my family, dude. So.
I'm with you on that, bro. I'm with you. Yeah. So since we came back in 2012, we've definitely stayed busy. We've done a bunch of tours. Of course, I'm slowing down on that. But we've done 2 studio albums, 1 live album, bunch of videos and shit. And we're booked to do a couple of things in 2022. Again, festival appearances. And I'm about halfway done writing a new Broken Hope album. So I definitely want to get a new Broken Hope album written and released in 2022. And then after that, you know, I don't ever see myself not writing death metal. You know, I'd like to keep putting out, no matter what, I'd like to keep putting out really quality albums and picking and choosing my battles when it comes to playing live. But I'd like to consistently, no matter what, write and release new Broken Hope music from here.
I think once you get to the point where you've been doing something for longer than you haven't, meaning like, you know, you started at 15 and you get to 32, you've done it for longer than you haven't, you know. Once you get to that point, it's like, I think it just keeps rolling downhill, dude, and we're never going to stop. We may fucking, you know, take a break away from it, but it's never not going to be on our shoulders fucking looking at us like, yo, dude, when are we going to do this again?
Well, you've had a pretty solid lineup for the past few years too, Jeremy. We have. Are the other guys helping you write the album too? Like my tocayo Diego Storia and
yeah, dude, let's do a little like crossover. Nobody really, I don't know if anybody knows that crossover right there.
Man.
So since when Broken Hope came back and we did the Obituary tour and got our record deal, we had a lineup that was really short-lived with our bass player Sean and this other guitar player that Sean had brought along in the band to be the lead guy. And probably within, we did our 2013, our next album had come out. The first one since Grotesque Blessings, Omen of Disease, came out in 2013. And we toured on that album. And before the end of that cycle, Sean and this other guy were gone. So from that point on, since 2013, Diego Soria from Disgorge, I didn't even know him that well. I knew Diego Sanchez. I knew Diego Soria from the tour we did with Deicide, but all I knew is he was a sick bass player, and Damian Lesky loves you guys. Yeah. He's probably got more Disgorge t-shirts than anyone on the planet. He wore Disgorge shirts nonstop, changing them. His own shirt. Yeah. And fucking love you guys. So he was always like, Diego would love to jam with us. Diego would love to jam with us. Totally. And so we gave him a shot, and he turned out to be fucking. Yeah. He's a solid dude, and he picks shit up good, and you know. He's a really good person. Yeah, really just quality human being, and he's a bass player's bass player. Yeah, he's a phenomenal musician. So we got him, and then we got Matt Schlatka, who's our lead guitar player. Just absolutely sick. You know,
he's got flavor, man.
Chimera before Broken Hope, and he was also in the Chicago area, and I had known him for years. So when our bass player and that other guitar player were gone, it was like the same day we got a hold of Diego and Matt. Diego flew out, Matt came up, we all jammed together, and we've been together ever since. So
that's awesome.
Let's see, so that's like, I don't know, we've been together with those guys already 7 or 8 years. Wow. So it's amazing. Time has flown, but yes, it's really wonderful to have a solid lineup that's consistent, and also to have a band that everyone are, not to sound corny, but are really brothers who,
I was just about to say, a brotherhood,
love each other and get along so well. We have a lot of nonstop laughs. We care about each other, and everyone also cares about making quality death metal and always being at the top of our game. Everyone in the band's got that attitude. But
and I think you can reach it a lot. a lot quicker when people are positive and they're good people, and you actually have that like deeper connection as friends aside from the band, like this brotherhood, this fellowship, whatever you want to call it. It's like, it's just fucking like you can reach those higher levels because everybody's kind of like, supernaturally lifting each other up together.
It's also too like everyone's like realistic about everything. Everyone's toured, everyone's fucking done something. They understand what the scene's about. They understand what they're getting themselves into. It's not like no one has any grandiose visions of being, opening for Metallica as kids anymore. Like now they've toured and they've hit the scene and they've done everything, and it's like, and they understand that, and then they put that, they basically put that all in together in the energy of the whole group, and now everyone's part of the brotherhood that understands it all. It's not like no one is like thinking something different. Everyone's kind of together in the same consciousness,
Yep. You can't put a price on that. I wouldn't change the past for the things I've learned and gone through.
Totally.
But part of me wishes that I had this lineup when I started Broken Hope, man.
That's cool.
There's growing pains. It makes me appreciate this lineup and these guys even more. You know what I'm saying? So
totally, dude. Awesome. Right. I mean, to bring your project back, and then you're be lucky enough to come across enough dudes that become that with you. It's like, of course, Broken Hope should still fucking keep going right now, dude. You caught another fucking wave, dude.
Exactly, man. And that's the chemistry with these guys really makes being in the band fucking fun. And
their personalities shine through too, but there's still that underlining Broken Hope essence, know, like listening to the newer stuff. I really still catch that older vibe in there. Even though it's like a newer mix and different people, like the riffs, they're still the grooves, those Broken Hope grooves are still like right there, Yeah, everybody in the band knows what Broken Hope is about, and everyone embraces that. And to answer Diego's earlier question, Damien and Matt that contribute to some of the riff writing. Matt's really a genius when it comes to not only his leads, but coming up with harmonies and actually sometimes rearranging songs. He did that with a number of tunes on our last album, Mutilated and Assimilated. I had written songs with Mike, demoed them, and then Matt had great suggestions. He's like, well, what if we rearrange this and put this here, and made the songs even better? And dude, and I didn't even think about that. And I knew about Gorgasm for a long time and how Damien played guitar while doing vocals. And I was just like, I didn't even put two and two together that he could totally influence the writing of the album as well, even though he's just doing vocals.
Yeah, I was listening to it on like today, like on my way home from work and stuff, and I was like, I felt like a slight Damien kind of vibe as far as like the Gorgasm-y kind of like, I felt a little Gorgasm
riffage.
Riffage you're talking like a little bit, a little touch.
On Mutilated and Assimilated, that was the first album that Damien contributed riffs to. It was the first album where him and I collaborated together too on riffs. So like the song Carrion Eaters, Damien wrote most of that song, but I came in with like, I think I wrote the chorus riff and part of the bridge. And then Damien wrote all the music for a song called The Bunker on that album. That was all him. So he's a sick riffer, sick guitar player, sick vocalist. That goes without saying, but I like his attitude too when it comes to Broken Hope, because he's like Diego Sanchez is a riff wizard, and Damian Lesky is a fucking death metal wizard. Like he knows this is what I bring. I bring something special to the table for Broken Hope. That
and he's a fellow flip flop wearer, so I'll always give him two fucking small horns,
Two flip flops up,
2 hand small horns like Joel Horner would do.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, everyone contributes, and it's a great thing. So
that's awesome, man.
Awesome.
So guys, listen, I got to wrap up soon. It's almost midnight here.
Okay. So before you wrap up,
I'm not going to turn into a pumpkin, but
no, I know.
No, it's all good. So before you wrap
forgot
up,
about the time change again.
I want to talk about the Jeff Hanneman guitars because that's one thing that's
that was
it's
the
hovering over me as the Jeff Hanneman guitars.
Well, I'll give you some of the backstory, but you can also Google it because Guitar World back when I acquired some of these instruments did a piece about it.
Huh.
And I think Metal Hammer did too. They interviewed me about it. But basically, Jeff Hanneman's widow, Catherine Hanneman, was going to auction these guitars off at one time. And she was having ESP guitars, was going to facilitate the auction. So when all that was happening, I've been playing ESP exclusively since 1988, since I was 18. And the president of ESP, Matt Massiadaro, really good friend of mine. He's like a big brother to me. He's just fucking family to me. I love that guy. He knew Jeff was a huge influence on me. And, he knew Matt also knew I was a guitar collector and all this stuff. So he had tipped me off about this Catherine Hanneman wanted to auction these guitars off, have ESP help her and do all this stuff. So he wanted to let me know about it. So in turn, I said, well, rather than auction them off, would she just be willing to sell guitars, depending on the price, blah, 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 and work out something with me. I won't waste her time. And so basically Matt went back to her and connected me with her, and I was able to acquire several guitars, and I got some of his amps and a bunch of personal.
So
effects.
you actually got those before the auction actually went?
Yeah, the auction never happened.
Oh, okay.
Because of that. So now I've got like a Jeff Hanneman tribute room, I guess you'd say.
Nice, dude.
Yeah.
Got a bunch of his I don't know, I got like his shirts and jackets and stuff on mannequins. It's like a legit Hanneman Slater museum. And then there's the guitars and all this stuff. But
that's killer, dude.
Catherine Hanneman, when I got these, she was like, please play these instruments. That's what Jeff would want. He wouldn't want these guitars being on display,
collecting dust somewhere,
or collecting dust or anything. So, on to her wishes and in memory of Jeff, I wrote most of our last album, Mutilated and Assimilated, using 2 of Jeff's guitars. I also recorded with only using Jeff's guitars, and we dedicated that album to Jeff Hanneman. So I'm all about
that's super rad, Jeremy.
keeping Jeff's spirit alive.
Totally.
I had no idea about those tidbits, and that was just a bombshell at the end right there.
Flying that flag high, because that's important.
Fuck yeah, it is, dude.
Some people get the impression that because I acquired these guitars, I get people trying to offer me guitars from other well-known people or in general, and it's like, no, you don't get it. This has a real emotional, meaningful connection to me. I'm not just a guitar collector that wants to buy a
frame of a guitar,
and fucking played it.
Yeah, you're not trying to make it a fucking what is
centerpiece,
it? Planet Hollywood, fucking
Right. So this stuff, to what you're asking, Joel, that is extremely meaningful. There's a reason I'm here, as Broken Hope guitar player. And part of me being here had to do with Jeff Hanneman, his influence on me, riff wise and lyrically. And, same could be said about, Jesse Pintado of Terrorizer and Napalm Death, and Chuck Schaldiner and James Hetfield, riffers, guitarists who changed my life and really motivated me to continue playing guitar. So to that end, again, these guitars have a very deep meaning, emotional meaning. And if anyone on this planet is respecting and upholding Jeff Hanneman's legacy, it's definitely me, and like that last Broken Hope album, I pulled out all the stops, wrote with those guitars, recorded with them, dedicated the album to him. So, but anyway, that's the Reader's Digest version of kind of how all this stuff happened.
That's you awesome, transfer those frequencies from Jeff through you in the studio when you're writing, brother.
I do, man. I'm all about preservation too. The only thing I've done is change the strings on the two guitars that I wrote and recorded with. Other than that, everything's intact. Every scratch, every sticker.
My question with what you just
sweat stains are on these guitars.
Sorry, dude. I didn't mean to step over the last part. I just wanted to know, because you said you only restringed it. So you obviously you knew what strings Jeff used, what gauge, everything. Is that what you went with too? Like the brand and the gauge,
the tuning, will have
strings.
Well, tuning will have a lot to do with it. You can't, if you're tuning differently, you can't use the same.
The tuning. He on most of the guitars, there's a little square of yellow duct tape that has the tuning for the guitar. So like the two guitars I wrote with and recorded with he had them tuned to C sharp. We tuned to D standard, so it wasn't much of a stretch.
Too off.
Okay.
But that's about it. Other than that, I try to keep everything intact, keep that Hanneman DNA
as much as
around on those instruments.
And just a quick side note on obviously Jeff Hanneman, but one of my guitars that I've always just wanted just to have, it's like the number one guitar is Kerry King's, that Flying V it's the reverse bass golf headstock ESP.
Yes.
He got sued for that because Gibson sued him for that, I guess, supposedly, because the headstock was so similar. But I've found a couple of them just for resale because that came out during the Seasons in the Abyss.
Seasons in the Abyss, that's right. Yep.
And that was and I think they're going for, if you find them, they're probably $15,000.
I got one. It's got a crackle type of finish.
Yeah, the red crackle.
Yeah, and I got a real deal on that. And I had never seen one in all my years, anyone ever selling one.
That's the one I want.
The right time. Yeah, I know. It was like a unicorn,
Yeah. But to me, that's my guitar that I want.
That's the exact one, Joel. Seasons in this, that crazy hockey-like headstock.
Yeah. Yep. You have that?
I have, yeah.
Oh my God! We'll offer you $8,000 right now.
If I ever decide to part with that one, I promise you, I will hit you up.
I will fucking
first one in
that's
line,
like
dude.
I've always wanted that. That's like as a childhood Live Intrusion Slayer. I mean, obviously, that's like what got me into Slayer. That was like because I was in high school, and he's playing that one. I'm like, that's the sickest fucking guitar I've ever seen. And to this day, like, I there's other brands that will do like copies of it, but that actual one is like the unicorn for me. That's like my unicorn.
And it was so short lived too with ESP. I mean, that was it. Kerry came in, had a deal with ESP, didn't care for me, went back to BC Rich.
BC Rich, yeah.
That's what makes it even more special because that window was so small. It's from that one time, like 94 or whatever, So.
Exactly. That's my unicorn, man.
I'm sorry, 90 to 94, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Jeremy, I know it's actually midnight there now, so
I love that little
Christmas, not Christmas,
I love
New
those
Year's
tidbits, though, dude. I love the little tidbits.
appreciate you having me on.
Fuck yeah.
If I ever get invited back,
I'm inviting you back right now, right this second.
You're invited back.
You're 100%.
Trace ourselves back to after Bowels. I'll give you a little more history.
Cool, dude. That's actually
because I could talk to you guys for fucking 20 hours.
Dude, and I'd love it because my part 2 would be like, let's dig into Repulsive Conception, because Repulsive Conception was actually the first tape that I ever bought on shout out Dusty Boisjoli's recommendation when we used to go down to Santa Cruz. So it's like this whole fucking thing that like our listeners kind of know about that obviously you don't know about, but it's still like one of those like key moments for me was Repulsive Conception. So yeah, part 2, we'll go deep into that, dude.
I would love to, because I didn't even touch upon Repulsive or Loathing or anything much. So
I think the only shout out we got was Pitbull Grin. I threw one of those little like
albums too now. So I got a whole story on Pitbull Grin itself that I'd love to share. So let's do
the mailman.
Or something.
Dude. Yeah. As soon as you're ready, we'll fucking be ready, dude.
Set it up and I'll come back. Let's do it. So
boom. Yeah.
Fuck yeah, Jeremy. Thanks for coming, man. I appreciate it.
So we'll say one more goodbye with you, Jeremy, after I say this right here. Love all you guys. Thanks for hanging out with us this week. Happy New Year. If you're watching this at the time, that'd be cool if like somebody's watching this while the ball drops right now, dude. That'd be go kiss your screens, kiss all these beautiful men right here. Kiss your screens. That's your New Year's kiss. All the resident homies.
And it'll drop.
Rock on, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Fuck yeah.